Good evening. This is the Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 meeting of the Finance Committee. We are in the Public Safety Building and also have a Zoom link to join the meeting as well. It is 7:06. We have a committee membership of 7. We have 4 present in the Public Safety Complex and 2 are on the Zoom meeting. I declare we have a quorum and that we're officially open. So our first order of business, which is traditionally a little perfunctory, but we have a number of meeting minutes in order to review and approve. They've all been sent to committee members. I'm going to start with the first one, which is all the way back to March 27th, 24. A couple of footnotes to that. One is we're sorry that we're reviewing March, April, and May minutes, but at the time that we were meeting, we had our hands full trying to balance the budget. And we continuously deferred these meeting minutes, and now we want to draw some closure to them. As you'll see, I'm not sure they're going to be shown on the screen, but they're quite comprehensive, and thanks go out to Tony for once again doing an extraordinary job of somehow capturing 2 and 2.5 hour meetings on 2 pieces of paper, so thank you. So with that, on the March 27th meeting minutes, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Seth? Excuse me, Steve?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Abstentions? None. The minutes pass. April 3rd. Same thing. You've had them in advance. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll do a roll call, I guess. Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark? Aye. Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. They pass. April 8th. I have a correction under members not attending. It lists my name, but it also lists me as the first one speaking, so I apologize for not making an impression on Tony, but I was present for that meeting. So with that slight change, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Any opposition? None. Any abstentions? None. The minutes of April 8th pass. April 25th. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
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 Any discussion? None. All in favor, Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark? Aye. Any opposition? None. Abstentions? None. The April 25th, 2024 minutes pass. May 17th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? None. All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Opposition? None. Abstentions? None. The May 17th, 2024 minutes pass. May 29th, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? None. All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
I abstain.
Steve?
Aye.
Ben abstained because he was absent. Mark votes aye. Any opposition? Hearing none. Any abstentions? One abstention. They pass. The meetings of, meeting minutes of June 16th, I think there needs to be a correction. I believe it's June 18th. I think June 16th was a Sunday. Want to check?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have it up in front of me.
I know we were,
June 16th was a Sunday.
so I think it was the 18th. I think we were all praying on the 16th, so, but we met on the 18th. With that minor correction, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor, Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Abstain.
Staying not present. I vote yes. Any, one opposed? None? One abstention? The June 18th, with that correction, minutes pass. The next set of minutes, I think, are typed on the header, May 17th, but I believe it's July 23rd.
If there's errors, do you want me to fix them? So I didn't catch that. Do you want me to fix any of those and resend them?
Say again?
Sorry, do we need to fix those and resend them, or?
I'll fix them and then.
Okay, you're good. Sorry about that.
618, I have 723 on the heading.
On the heading, yeah. But the minutes themselves read May 17th. I think if we change to agree with the
Correct.
header,
I'll take care of that. Yep.
July 23rd. With that minor correction, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
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 Discussion? None. All in favor, Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Any opposition? None. Any abstentions? None. The meetings of July 23rd, 24 pass. And that concludes our meetings, minutes. So, thank you, Jeremy, thank you, Tony, for catching us up. We appreciate it. Job well done. Thank you. So our next agenda item is that of reserve funds. You've been sent 2 emails. One included 3 reserve fund transfer requests, and a 4th one was sent a little bit later this afternoon because some additional work needed to go into it before it was ready to be sent to you. So glad you have it. Sorry it was a little late, but if we can review those 4. I'm going to turn it over to Heather, if you don't mind, to walk us through.
Absolutely. So the first 2 requests and then the last 2 requests have to do with some turnover we've had at Town Hall. So our treasurer collector has been with us for a number of years. She is leaving us this week, is her last formal day. She'll still be with us informally for a little bit, to take a job over in the town of Rutland, or rather advance in a prior role she already has over there into a finance director position. She's been with the town for a number of years, and as a result, she has accrued a decent amount of vacation time. She has unpaid vacation time that we need to pay out. The estimated amount of the vacation time is about $8,600 that we will owe her. Regardless of whether this comes from reserve fund or from the town's budget, we still owe this to her when she departs us. The notion of pulling it from reserve versus from the budget itself is it would put us behind the eight ball if we pull it from her budget to be able to sustain and pay the next person, as opposed to, we did not anticipate her leaving, and this is something we did not put into the budget ahead of time to be able to pay out someone's vacation time.
So a quick question,
Sure.
so as to not take it from the reserve fund, but leave it in the budget, that would put some hardship on the replacement. Do you have an announcement with regard to the replacement?
I do. So the select board met at 5 PM today on Zoom, a quick meeting. We'll get it up to YouTube once the Zoom video arrives in my saved files online. But very excitingly, we will have Elizabeth Clements, who was affirmed as our treasurer collector, and she will start in the next couple weeks and do a little bit of shadowing, a little bit of work with Donna Kuchar to be able to pick up where she left off, and I think we'll be up and rolling. Very exciting.
Congratulations. And we wish Donna well, who served the town of Paxton very well. So Rutland's gain is our loss, but we're glad Elizabeth has joined us. I'm going to raise a difficult question because I certainly don't begrudge what is rightfully due to a departing employee. But in the private sector, there's oftentimes a policy that prevents this type of payout from having to be paid. A requirement to use your vacation, that it can't be accumulated. Does the town have something like that? Because if I look at, again, every nickel that she's entitled to, we are obligated to pay, and I'm sure we will do that this evening, but that's about 17 or 18% of our reserve fund for this particular item. Is there a policy, or how does the accumulation reach this particular level?
So she's allowed to carry forward 2 weeks of vacation each year. And she's been with the town for 16 years?
Yeah.
16 years, so I believe she gets, was it 5 weeks?
4 weeks.
4 weeks of vacation plus the other 2, and she is one of our higher paid employees. So that number comes up pretty high.
So being allowed to carry 2 weeks forward, is that a town of Paxton policy or generally a government municipal policy?
It's our policy and our personnel rules.
Again, she's entitled to it, that's the policy, but it's a big number.
It is a big number.
So are there any, I'm kind of putting the discussion in front of the motion, hopefully you don't mind doing that. With that, I continue if there's any further discussion.
I guess one question I had is, was this a full-time role or a part-time role?
So she's, yeah, so she was working 30 hours a week is what we paid her for. The person who's coming into the position at a much lower rate of pay will be doing 40 hours a week. To make that happen, we'll be combining the treasurer collector wages with the assistant treasurer collector wages. So we won't have the assistant role at all, which was only 8 hours a week and sometimes hard to fill. It will just be one person who's salaried at 40 hours.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to transfer $8,600 from the reserve fund to the treasure collector salary fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Any opposition? None. Any abstentions? None. The request passes. There is a second one regarding the town service coordinator. similar situation?
Yes, so Cheryl has been with us for 14 years, and she is departing us at the end of October. We were trying to calculate approximately how much vacation time she had left. The number there should actually be 2,200, but unfortunately, once I wrote it, Adobe would not let me go back in and amend it. I tried my best, and it just wouldn't let me do it. So I did include in the email to Mark, we only need 2,200 to cover the unused vacation time. And Cheryl, as the Town Services Coordinator, currently works 26.5 hours a week is what we budget for, which means 24 hours of regularly occurring office hours, and the other 2.5 hours per week cover for when we have the meetings, such as the zoning bylaw pieces we've been doing on Wednesdays, or planning board or zoning board or other engagements for the town.
So is there a motion with this footnote that it'll be changed to 2,200? And I'll get the proper paperwork, but if we could vote on the 2,200 this evening, is there a motion to approve?
So move, motion to move the amended 2,200 from reserve to town service wages.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing,
One,
yep, go ahead.
one question I have is, where is is it 20 hours and above we pay vacation? Just, what's that threshold where employees start getting vacation?
Yeah, so 20 hours or more is part-time benefited.
Okay, thank you.
So a motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? None. All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Any opposition? None. Any abstentions? None. Motion at $2,200 passes. So now we have a third one. Now, we've just spent 20% of our reserve fund. I'm glad we increased it. There's a little footnote to that. So this is a narrative. Do you want to handle it, Heather, or are there representatives here from the library?
I'll defer to the library.
Hi, thank you, Mark and FinCom. I'm writing, do you want me to read the memo or just summarize for you? I'm happy to summarize. Our MAR calculations were off by $154. So we are requesting a reserve fund transfer of $154 to the library account.
So who made the error?
I did, and the formula wasn't a formula, it was a number.
Just want that on the record, by the way.
It absolutely was my error. When I went to do the state aid report,
Yeah.
I saw the number there and I went back. It was my mistake, absolutely.
So at some particular point, there's reserve fund transfer forms available at either online or at town hall. I didn't think there was one that was included with yours.
Oh, I did send one.
Yeah, I should have sent it with it. Did not come through.
Was it all one?
It should have been as part of the same document.
Here's what I got.
Yeah.
There is a form.
Yeah,
Okay, so it is filled out.
Yep,
she did what she was supposed to do.
thank you.
If it didn't come through, it was my error.
Okay, we just
I
want to
can-
make a record of who's making the errors here this evening.
Absolutely.
So I sent it to Heather for her signature, and then it would go to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry for the feedback.
So here's the point that I wanted to make. At the special town meeting, there was a motion on the floor to reduce the reserve fund by $12,000 to fund the library.
So the one, not the most recent one, the one
Yes,
prior to that?
the earlier one.
I was not aware anyone was doing that. That was a resident. It wasn't, I'm just letting you know. I would have suggested to them that they not do that, personally.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
It went through its normal process. I I want to point out that I stood in opposition to that particular reduction to the reserve fund. But in favor of the library, but not in favor of reducing the reserve fund. And I think I said that evening that there might be some trust funds, which I've been later told, yeah, but no. There is the Friends of the Library. And then I said, and if that doesn't work, come back to the Finance Committee and we have a reserve fund and nobody wants you to lose your certification. I never thought you'd come back for $154. So my question is, are you sure $154 isn't available in the library budget or Friends of the Library to not make this request?
So I appreciate your question. It's not about what's available from other funds. According to the state, it has to be municipally appropriated.
Has to come from the town.
It has to come from the town, otherwise I'd be happy to take it out of a trust fund or ask the Friends for it. I even talked to the MBLC. I said it's a very small amount. Is there leeway? They said another library they're off by $1, and too bad. So I did go through all the resources, Mark. I really wish I could just take it from one of the trust funds or from the Friends. If I could, I would. I can guarantee I'll leave it for you at the end of the year to put it back.
Nope, if it's got to come from
It has to be
municipal
municipally
town
appropriated,
funding.
correct.
You've answered my question, so. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to transfer $154 from I would assume the reserve fund to whatever fund it's going to, because I don't have the paperwork.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor, Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Any opposition? None. Abstentions? None. $154 passes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So now we have a fourth one, which was sent in a different email, so hopefully everybody has access to it, and hopefully Jeremy can show it on the screen. And it was delayed because it's got a story behind it. So give us 1 second, Heather.
Sure.
How's that look? Is that it?
Wonderful. That's it.
Okay.
All right, so this last request is related back to the town service coordinator position. So Cheryl has been with the town for about 14 years. She has done an absolute amazing job, and she does an absolute amazing job in what is mostly 24 hours a week with a few extra hours for the meetings. She covers the Board of Health, the zoning board, the planning board, as well as all of the building department, which means handling all of the permit applications coming in, coordinating with the building inspector, the backup building inspector, the wiring and the plumbing inspectors, along with their backups, along with actually managing and running view permit, setting up any of the flow charts, making sure everything is signed off, looking at every single permit that comes in, and also being our go-to person on our zoning bylaws. She has a great deal of responsibility. If you look at other communities, sometimes they have this all in one position. A lot of times, they have it in multiple positions. But the 24 hours a week she does because she's been doing this for so long, and she's very good at what she does, and she knows all the pieces inside and out. I'm absolutely terrified that if we move on to hiring the next person, especially with someone who doesn't know all of these elements and hasn't been doing them on a regular basis, that they're not going to be able to accomplish the job in 24 hours a week with a few extra for the meetings. The minutes that are taken at the Board of Health, the zoning board, and the planning board are very important. In many cases with the zoning board and the planning board, people can appeal their decisions. And if you have someone appealing the decision, it means there could be legal review. So being able to be precise in the minutes and having everything recorded and all the paperwork and making sure all of the processes are followed is not just someone who can walk in and sit down and do it. It's someone who's going to either have to take time to learn or have to go through training to be able to get to those pieces. One of the benefits about having the position that Cheryl currently holds in this building is it also provides a face to the community in the building that was the dispatch office that had been vacant for a number of years. So when people come in during the day, the workday, they're able to assist them and also make any phone calls they need to of who's there. It also gives us the ability to start further developing a one-stop shop. One of my proposals here is to look at the job description of that position and make some modifications to it. One of the things the FinCom has been talking about for a long period of time has been the importance of economic development in the town of Paxton, including with pushing and successfully getting the Economic Development Committee off the ground. As we move forward with the zoning bylaws and the zoning bylaws hopefully take effect, we're expanding our zoning district for businesses, which means along with relaxing some of our business restrictions, hopefully will encourage more people to come into town and more building in town, which means we're going to need more hours from this person to be able to assist. The proposal here also includes moving things like the fire department permits into that office, and also having this person be the customer service face for the town, which means that if you came in as a business owner and you said, hey, I'm here, you know, I really would like to open an ice cream parlor, this person can do a one-stop shop, right? It's one face, one person, they're able to access and kind of diagnose what you're looking for and point you in the right direction, make sure you're signing up for the right forms, and also further work on increasing the technology that's behind things on View Permit to make it easier so you can connect all of those pieces at once. That's the idea, to be able to have one person be able to do all these pieces. So in addition to what the person already does, which 24 hours is not enough for most people to be able to do, the idea would be to add a couple other roles and responsibilities here, including the fire department permits. To offset the fire department permits from the fire department, I've talked to the fire chief and we're able to take some of the hours that's currently dedicated for the fire admin person and push that over to this position, so it would offset some of the increased cost. One of the other benefits of having a person at 40 hours a week is you're looking at someone who's interested, committed to the town, and also is interested in having some longevity. When you have a shorter number of hours in that position, you're looking at a higher chance of turnover. I know Mark alluded to this earlier, but to come up with this proposal and even to figure out what direction to go, and I've spoke with all of the select board members. I spoke to Neil, who's the chair of the planning board. I talked to Julia, who's the chair of the Board of Health. I talked to Roberta, who's the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I talked to the municipal person for the Franklin Regional Council of Government to pick his brain. I talked to Trish Settles from CMRPC, and I talked to some other folks along the way, as well as Cheryl. So I've had lots of conversations bouncing different ideas off of all of them. We talked about three main ideas with different hours. You could stick with the same position you have at 24 hours, but now you're taking a gamble that someone, first of all, wants that specific number of hours, as well as that fact that someone either is coming in knowing those pieces or willing to commit and learn super fast and also stay. So you're not having a training issue over and over again. You could look at making it 19 hours non-benefited, but you make it 19 hours, you have a higher chance that you're going to have more turnover in that position, and that person's going to have to crank. But you could move the pay way up to as much as you can possibly make it at, and you'd be looking at taking someone likely from another community who already is doing this. But again, you face the possibility that they're going to leave quickly, or that they may not be able to get the job done in even the 19 hours a week. You also look at the 40 hours, and that's where I keep settling. The fact that these positions right now are so hard to fill. When I talked to Trish earlier from CMRPC, I think she said she's had several positions open since April. And some of them, they've even gone back and retitled them to see if they can get more interest in those positions. But it's very hard to fill land use type, zoning type positions right now. So even at 40 hours a week, that's no guarantee that I can attract someone to the position. But I will say overall in the town of Paxton, the past couple of years, when we've had openings, We've been very lucky at being able to fill them, and we've had very qualified candidates submit and be interested in working for the town. So if you scroll down, Jeremy, if you could please, to the next page. I take a look at numbers here. So Cheryl currently comes in, she's on the wage and classification scale at a C11, so $28.13 an hour. The range I would post the position would be a range. It would be between C1, which is absolute minimum qualifications, to someone who's a little bit more qualified at C5 for $24.25. The difference again would be the 26.5 hours versus the 40. You see the breakdown of the weekly pay and then the annualized amount. So it would be moving the position on an annual basis from either $38,763 to $45,000 and some change, or $50,000 and some change, depending on where they fell on that scale. If you scroll down a little bit more, I break up the next box up, please. Thank you. Budget numbers, so starting balance, we started this year at $38,722. We've currently expended $8,977 with this week's payroll. Expected 5 more weeks of pay would be about $3,727, which would leave us about $26,018. If we move over some fire admin funds, or rather just charge directly to the fire admin side for the first $2,637.18, that gives us the ability to have $28,655 for this position for the rest of the year. Figure there's about 34.5 weeks when you start in November for this type of position. And you're looking at the calculations again down below. The amount needed for the C1 pay would be $30,318, or the potential max of C5 would be $33,465. And the difference of what's left to be able to be paid would be either $1,663 or $4,809. Because I do not know where someone would fall on the scale, and I would need to have an idea of that before I actually post the position, I would be asking for that $4,809. I think I rounded up to $4,010 on the reserve fund requests. And then I also included, I believe, was it $500? Jeremy, if you scroll
Yep,
down a little bit.
500 for training.
Oh, there it is, right above. Yep, $500 for training. So I did check with all of those different resources. One of the places they recommended was the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative, which is a nonprofit group in Massachusetts. They offer trainings on a regular basis from everywhere from, I work for the planning board now. How do these basic applications process? Same thing with zoning. They have a number of them. They charge for all of their trainings, so, $50 for each of the webinars, and then they have a few in-persons. So that would put into the budget a little bit of money for those pieces. The $600 that's already in the town service coordinator budget for training is for all of the departments. Alrighty.
So, quick question, can you
Yes.
scroll down to the form request? Now, the form request, are you requesting 4810 or 5310?
5310.
I'm requesting both, Mark. I just broke it down into the two because one would go to the town service coordinator wage line, and the other one would go to the supply line. Or not the supply line, purchase services, I'm sorry. So that one's
I
5102.
think you attached the same one twice.
Oh, I did, look at that.
And by the way, you attach the definition of a reserve fund every time you make a request.
Well, it's part of the double-sided form, so it just naturally comes along with it.
Okay. So we see one at 4810.
Yes, and the second
So
one,
there should be two, another one for 5, separate and apart from the 4810.
yes.
Okay. So that's one point. The other is, you talked about possibly a name change, but in your narrative, you've come up with one.
I did, but I still don't
Permitting
know
and
if I love
Economic
it.
Outreach Coordinator?
Yes.
Has that been vetted, where and who and what and when and why?
No, it's a working title still. So I'm the town service coordinator position, I've never loved the title of because I don't feel it's totally indicative of what that person does. They're a major asset to the community, and coordinator definitely is part of what they do. But I think looking at, if I was someone in the community as a resident or as a business, I think this would give me more of an indication that I'm probably contacting this person.
Okay. So pardon the devil's advocate questions. In a draft of a budget guidance that hasn't gone to the public yet, and you've shared it privately with some, so I don't want to speak about a sharing of a private draft publicly, but I'm going to, because in that it says no new positions. So how do you get by this, that arguably, it could be argued that this is a different position?
So if we are looking to increase economic development in the town, we need someone who's going to be able to aid us in doing that. This isn't a huge increase from the current position. We're able to use a decent amount of the funds that are already there, with a little bit more to get us there. But essentially, like many things, if you put money into something, and this is a position that I think is one of those examples, you'll likely get more on the other end, right? So this person, instead of having folks, put a permit in for the fire department and a permit in for the building department, they're able to do it all connected and make sure everything gets paid. Sometimes, someone may have thought that they had paid because they paid the building permit, but they didn't realize there was also a fire aspect to it, or vice versa. So theoretically speaking, having a strong person in this position could, in a very small way, increase the revenues to the town.
So that was my next question. So is it a leap to think that this has the potential of paying for itself?
I think it's a leap, but I think what it does do is it makes it so that there is someone available for, this is one of those positions, a lot of towns and a lot of places, and we have the same internal conversations, look at, where are people going for their information? How do we provide customer service? And customer service nowadays, there's less foot traffic than there ever was. But there's still a decent amount of foot traffic for when you're talking about permitting, and someone coming in to ask about starting a business and so forth. Right now, for instance, in the Board of Health side, when it comes to septic plans, we have people in here probably once or twice a week asking for a copy of a septic plan, right? So that person still sees quite a bit of foot traffic, and being here is very important for, I think, the community to have that ability to have someone they can go to directly for their permitting pieces and assistance, and also knowing just, what do I file, right? I want to open an ice cream shop and I want to put it on Pleasant Street, and, the place used to be a business previously. Do I need a special permit? Do I need a variance? What do I need for permits from the Board of Health? Do I need a milk license? Whatever it may be. All of those pieces.
So there's, you mentioned economic development. I'm going to defer to, there's 3 members on finance that have been involved in it, 2 former members, 1 current members. I'll defer to them. But the fire permits, when we have an administrative assistant in that role right now, I see some money coming over, but how does that work, where this person's now doing some of that person's job?
So that person's job description will modify a little bit on Mike's end, or the fire chief's end, really, to make things work better and more on the higher level admin side. The nice thing about moving the fire permits over is nowadays, if you come in and you want to do a burn permit and you don't do it online, they got to call someone from the fire side to come over and assist you. This person will be able to address all of their needs in one spot. It also makes it a lot cleaner and smoother for setting up appointments when there is a joint building department and a fire department need at the same time.
Any of the Economic Development Committee reps want to chime in? I mean, if that position can give that
It needs.
committee some stimulus.
It sure does. It needs, And again, now that, you know, the bylaws are moving forward, if that opportunity for people to want to develop things in town, it needs someone. The committee's great, but the committee is a volunteer committee of people who have jobs, and it's hard. It goes back to Heather on that, and I mean, I like the idea, I really do.
Yeah, if we're serious about economic development, then this paying for itself shouldn't be hard, whether it does this year or next year, but that's not, you're talking, you know, first of all, replacing, Cheryl's not a replaceable human being. Like, anything she did in 26 hours is gonna take somebody else 60, you know? So I have a hard time believing that, I'm not looking to spend more money. I think this really does make sense, but we have to take advantage of it, you know, if we go this route. I think with the new building inspector too, it's been more friendly. It's been a more, you know, I think we should see more people permitting things. One of the things we're proposing through economic development is to have maybe some kind of workshops for people to meet with, you know, people from this department, or maybe even someone like this, and understand, you know, what you can do at home, you know, and just get more comfortable saying, hey, you can do this project, you just need a permit, you know, so people can get some guidance and maybe increase revenues that way. So I really like this idea. I can't imagine you're gonna bring somebody in to perform all those things that, there's no way at 19 hours a week. At 26 hours a week, they'd have to be at the top of that pay scale, because it's a lot of work. I mean, if we're serious about, you know, more economic development, then this is naturally gonna increase with it, so.
Any further discussion or questions? I think we're going to take two votes here. One is a motion for the 4810 for the position as described, as included in the narrative, and as discussed by Heather. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve transferring $4,810 from the reserve fund to the town service coordinator, 1129-510240.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
A reserved aye.
I vote aye. Any opposition? None. Abstentions? None. Motion passes. Is there a motion which we don't see, but we know, and it will be forthcoming, for $500 for training?
Is it to the same fund?
It should be to purchase services.
So I'll make a motion to transfer $500 from the reserve fund to purchase services to cover training for the new position.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Any opposition? None. Abstentions? None. That motion to transfer passes. Very good. So now back to our agenda. I waited for, speaking of the recap of the FY24 financial results, let me qualify this a little bit. I sent a beautiful email with reference to the attachment and didn't attach it. So it is going to be shown here, but we want to qualify it because it's kind of in its second draft form. Don't want to get ahead of the select board, that they haven't seen it, so I asked Heather to just speed present us with this And as it gets finalized, there perhaps would be another session where you could be more detailed. But I think it's a good enough product which was presented to the financial management team. So we've seen it once already. There's a lot of detail. I've asked her not to go into that detail, but there's also a lot of good stuff to take away. And I'll get you your own PowerPoint hard copy first thing tomorrow morning. But if we could show, is it at all possible, Heather, for you to bring it up on your screen?
I could, but
What-
why don't I just stay on a higher level note than even showing it? Because when you show a 44-page budget document or slideshow, people want to know what's in between pages 115 and 36. So, just to add a little bit here, so my goal this year, if folks remember, we did a joint meeting of the select board, I think it was a joint meeting of the select board and the finance committee last year, in which I presented this very same document, just with the prior year's numbers, right? Budget highlights, a review of 23 at the time, look at 24, and what's next. My thought this year, and I know Mark has this, so I'm getting ahead of him a little bit. So one of the things I'd really like to see happen, I think would be a great benefit to everyone involved, including the community, is to try to be able to do a working session with Finance Committee and the Select Board all in one room before we get going with budget season. Not with, cameras not on, it's obviously a public meeting, so people could attend. What other towns do when they do a working session is they tell folks, if you do want to attend, you're more than welcome, but you're not going to be recognized. It's going to be just an opportunity for the committees to have a conversation and review different things. And that's what I would ideally love to do, is do a full presentation of this before both. And even before the budget guidance, and go over that as well at that time and so forth. And the reason being is I think this year especially, when building the FY26 budget, there's a lot of questions that we need to answer before we start FY26. What budget are we starting with? What are we looking to accomplish at the end of the day? Are we looking, are we starting with that level services budget from after the failed override? Are we starting with, the reduced services? Are we starting with level services before that? Are we starting with the budget we currently have? What are we looking to build back in, and how do we go from there? So with that being said, so we'll look back into what Mark asked me to do. So looking back to FY24's budget. So we're still closing our books currently. The town accountant and the treasurer collector are finishing up their numbers, finishing up what their submittals will be to the state for our year end, as well as our certification of free cash. That free cash number I have in the budget book is likely lower than what the actual is going to be, because we're still looking at all those pieces. And this was back in, what did we do this, Mark? Like August 29th-ish, I think I had on my dates. So it's been a little bit over a month, so some things have changed. So this is not 100% accurate, but some high-level pieces. So in general, we ended up higher than what we had submitted for the tax recap estimate when we're looking at revenue. Some of the major contributing factors, and this hasn't changed, were motor vehicle excise, investment income, and building permits. So I guess, Mark, I know I said I wasn't going to, but maybe I will just share those pieces. Hold on. Let's see. Jeremy,
Well-
I'm going to take over share. Is that
Just
Well-
dropping share.
While you're doing that, let me do a quick recap. Revenue was up over what was budgeted by 251,000.
at least? Yep.
Expenses were down from what were budgeted by 246,000. So roughly a $500,000 delta, some of which will go forward to have that free cash certified.
Yes.
So it's kind of difficult summarizing '24 when we just got through FY '25 and we're having a meeting to talk about FY '26. So don't want to confuse matters, but I think as you get this 46-page document, you'll find there's a lot in there. There are trends, there are explanations why, there are budget busters, there are who was under budget by 10,000, who was under budget by 5,000, who was under budget by 1,000. Good information, I think, taking into FY '26. So
So
now
here-
that it's up, I'll pass it back to you.
So just a couple quick slides here. So just motor vehicle excise, you can see that trend-wise, it's up quite substantially. I'll save for another date, as Mark said, the explanations on our understanding and our predictions on why that happened. Investment income, that one was substantially higher as well, with at least $64,000 more. People already know investment income was up for a couple reasons. One of the major ones being interest rates were up. And we had a very proactive treasurer collector who made sure we were getting the best interest rate we could find. And then building permits as well were up by over $35,000. And you can see the trend there. Again, it's way above the norm. So in many cases with those three pieces, we got very lucky as to how everything aligned last year. Let me just scroll down here. So things that came in under budget by more than 10,000, Bay Path, we already knew about that. I think Mark had brought it up at a prior FinCom meeting when we were in the budget cycle last year, where they ended up having to reduce their assessment. The building department came in under, DPW, employee benefits, police, reserve fund, snow and ice, and the town administrator line. So those are a few. Let's see here. So we did capture internal transfers from FY '24, which was a newer concept. We had 56 internal transfers, 179,154 is what they totaled. So everyone has those reports. They're available on the town's website under the town accountant. But those are 56 requests we did not have to make to the FinCom to do a year-end transfer in many cases, or a reserve fund. So we were able to use that internally, and most of those numbers, a substantial amount of those were under any large numbers, but I can calculate that out and make sure I add that in the final presentation too. Other budget takeaways, I just have some pieces there. Some trends, so local aid, you see it's going up, but ever so slightly. Let's see, funds used to balance the budget. You can see those pieces. The purple represents the operating stabilization. You can see those numbers went from nothing to a number to an even higher number. So every year we keep using more of these funds that incorporate free cash, ambulance receipts, and operating stabilization. I should put a trend line on that, but I didn't think of that at the time when I did it. Free cash, you can see the amount we've used each year. Stabilization for operating, ambulance receipts, again, that has a trend line. You can see those, capital stabilization, and so forth. So I won't go in any further into that. I'm still working on predictions for next year to make sure that those numbers come out correctly. I just haven't finished those pieces yet. But that is a little bit of the highlights of what you'll look at, and you see the draft. So that's still an early document.
Okay, good. So any chance we can go back to the agenda, Jeremy? So in the middle of the agenda, there is 4 items listed. One is a recap of the FY '24 financial results, which we just got a skeleton's presentation of. The next item, at the time that it was prepared, we were anticipating we would have it, but the FY '26 budget guidance communication letter is not ready for prime time yet, nor is the budget calendar, and I think we'll do that at a later date. But the proposed joint budget working session of FinCom and the Select Board, you did send out a communication on that. I sent that to you late in the day, sent it to everyone. Just want to speak to that point because I don't want to have the working session that we're not having at this particular FinCom meeting, but I want to share kind of.
Do you want me to pull it up, Jeremy?
No, I got it. I think. Yeah, hold on. Editing. Zoom. Screen. That's the JT budget meeting draft.
Yeah.
Try this.
So
You,
here's my thought for maybe not a decision this evening. And my thought is, almost nobody's going to find fault with, at the top of the page, a working session. We've all talked a number of times about having to work together. And now you have this proposition right here, so it's hard to kind of rein on that particular thought. But under review, where it says guiding documents, I would maintain that I'll skip over the charter for a minute, but the Finance Committee bylaws and the financial management policies on the budget are very clear that the Finance Committee prepares the budget. And you have that on one side with a working session to work on the budget, and I think we need to be a little careful of that. And the charter, which is listed first, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty silent on that. So you get 3 documents cited, one's silent on it, the other 2 are very clear on it, and yet we have a very positive proposition here to have a working session. I think we need to massage what the working session is going to be, as opposed to having the working session to decide what the working session is going to be about. Because, as I mentioned a minute ago, both in the policies and the bylaws, it says who prepares the calendar, who submits the budget, et cetera, and we don't want to have a situation where we're on one side of an override and the select board's on another side of the override, and that's the value of the working session. But I wouldn't want to throw the bylaws and the policies out the window at the same time. Does that make any sense? So I like it, but I think we need to be, my read of it is I have a yellow flashing caution light right now. Doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. I don't want to get emails tomorrow that I'm anti-working together. That's not my point. But we have bylaws and charges and responsibilities that are very clear. And I think we need to be mindful of that. So,
May I, Mark?
yeah, go right ahead.
So I would just say, so Jeremy, can you scroll down a little bit for me, please? Thank you. A little bit further up. The other way. Right there. So general decisions. So my thought on the working session is I think it would benefit everyone if everyone was understanding how things were going to roll this year and we could come to agreements on certain things, right? So even if there's a proposed budget calendar, everyone says, okay, yep, that looks good, we're good to go. Every budget guidance, everyone's good with it, it's good to go, we move forward with it. And budget procedure, how are we going to do it? Down below when you get to these questions, right? These are the important questions I think everyone needs to be in agreement with. Which budget are we starting with? Are we starting with the approved FY25 to date, the level services requested budget back from May, or the reduced services budget back from June? Depending on which one you start on, changes where you even begin with the deficit. When you look down to the expected role of the TA, this is, of course, to me, this is one of the most important sections, right? Because I want to make sure both the select board and FinCom are on the same page with what my expectation is, or what the expectation is for my role when I get the budgets this year, what I'm supposed to be doing with them. How much involvement I'm going to have and what I'm supposed to be turning over at the end of the day. Budget workbook, again, this is just kind of a reviewing of what we're using as a tool, so everyone's on the same page. How many budgets, right? Last year, we started with one budget, and then we ended up doing essentially a second budget. Do we want to do that again this year? How do we want that to look? And then override questions, right? Will the school figures be included when we get to an override? Are we including just what we need to balance the budget? Are we including what we need and additional? When will we make a decision on the override? When will we start providing information? What information, how will we supply it? I don't feel like those are specific budget-only questions. I think those are more operating rules of procedure, right? What is everyone involved agreeing to, and how are we going to proceed this budget year so that it's a very fruitful budget year where everyone feels like they have an opportunity to represent what they need, the residents get all the information they need, and people understand what's happening and how it's happening and when it's happening. And I think having one of these, essentially, we can call it a working session or a focus session before, I don't think it's writing the budget. I think it's just saying, okay, how are we going to do this? What's this going to look like, and what is everyone agreeing to as far as how this is going to happen? So I have a different view on that, Mark.
So, I guess, so we come into that meeting with what? So we have a working session, we start with just one of the previous, you mentioned one of the previous budgets, or
So
what are we starting from in that meeting? And, well, I guess the second part of that question is, it would be great if we all had a meeting like that and we're all in unison, but if we're not, and the decisions to be made, who makes the decision?
So my thought, Tony, would be is that we would have a multiple hour meeting at one time, so like a 3-hour meeting, right? We'd come in, it would be a working session, we would review, the documents, as Mark said, and he's not wrong, the charter is somewhat silent with regards to the budget. You have the FinCom bylaw and then the financial policies on budget. The charter does say the TA shall submit a 5-year financial forecast each year. But those pieces can all be reviewed, make sure everyone has a copy of those documents and understands them. Then financial history. So kind of going through the slideshow, what we just did, make sure everyone understands where we currently are financially, right? How did 24 end up? How's 25 going? And what are we looking at when we're looking at the forecast for 26 to FY30? Then we would have a draft already of calendar of events, so that everyone can take a look and make sure everyone agrees to it. Usually what happens, I believe it's a combination of the finance committee bylaws and the finance policies, and at some point my mind meshes them both together. But essentially, myself and Mark would work on most of this, and then it gets submitted to FinCom and SB and Capital for their review and also approval. But we could get it approved in one spot so we don't have to go back. Same thing with budget guidance. We could have a draft ready to go for that group meeting. Again, the major problem with doing budget guidance in advance is unless there's a decision made as to which budget we're starting with, the budget guidance is going to change. So there needs to be a definitive point. And having no definitive point, I'm just going to assume it's going to be the budget we're approved with right now and we're going to move forward. But we know that's going to create deficits. Getting into the conversation about the school budget, that's always been a topic that comes up before FinCom and SB, right? What can we afford? What do we want to put our foot down on things? Do we want to include them when we talk about the word override? How do we want to move forward with those pieces? And then budget procedure, which is again reviewing a little bit of the calendar and how it's going to work to make sure everyone feels like that's something we can stick to with the schedule and everyone knows what's coming, so that we try to avoid having last minute meetings like ended up happening quite a few times last year, and everyone understands the flow of things in the chart and everyone's on the same page. And then those general decisions, I think, is huge.
But to Tony's question, and I'm going to use the school as a perfect example. What happens if in our working session where we're trying to agree, we don't agree? And a perfect example is the last 3 years, 2 for sure. So I'll shorten it. For the last 2 years, the Finance Committee has voted against the Wachusett Regional School district budget, the select board has voted in favor of it. So that issue right there, there are different views of where to take it, what the value is, what the impact is, whether or not an override should be one override, or whether there should be an operating town override and a school budget override. There's so many balls in the air that I wouldn't want the working session to be hoped to be more than it can really be. And therefore, we walk out disappointed because we weren't singing Kumbaya on the way out, because we have different views of things, and that's the value of the finance committee, which is independently appointed. In every town, not just the town of Paxton. So I like the idea, but I step back from the idea as well.
So I guess I would say that, if we keep doing what we currently are doing, we're not going to change the results, right? We're always going to end up having the same last-minute conversations going back and forth and not necessarily coming to an agreement. If we try something different, and this is different for the town of Paxton, there's a possibility that we might make progress. Now, we may not, but it's different than what we've normally done, so it's possible it could work. And the idea here of coming up with a school budget policy is coming up with one before you even have the proposed budget from the school, right? Saying upfront, looking at the year-over-year trends for the next 5 years, what can we really afford and be able to sustain? And, if you come to an agreement ahead of time and say, listen, we can sustain something that's under 2.5%, any year it's over 2.5%, and maybe that's every single year, school goes to an override. And other towns are gonna know our position ahead of time because we have a policy and we agreed to the policy. I don't know.
I don't disagree. I think the thing is, I think coming to agreement and coming to a decision are two different things. Like to sit in a multi-hour meeting like that, I think it's a good idea. It just needs to have a very clear, I think it's outlined well. I think it's got to have a clear purpose, like what comes out of that meeting? What's at the end of the meeting? Is there a document? And again, I wouldn't assume that we're going to come to an agreement on everything. And that was my point, is at that point at which we can't agree, like who makes the decision on, I think that should be clear going into the meeting, and then it'll be useful time, because otherwise we're just going to spend hours going back and forth on one point. This, there's got to be somebody who's the ultimate decision maker, based on whatever bylaws or whatever, in terms of, what we come out of the end at, if there's an impasse on a certain point. Otherwise, it's wasted time.
So I would say my goal as of right now is 4 deliverables. An agreed upon FY20, it should say FY26 calendar of events, agreed upon budget guidance, school budget policy or direction, and budget procedure for FY26. If we get through nothing else and we can only come up with those 4 pieces, I think that's huge. The questions down below just help us guide
You're gonna,
those above pieces.
my battery's dead. You're
Oh,
losing me.
I'm sorry, Jeremy.
That's okay.
I think I would suggest what you need to make sure is included in any document you pass out prior to this working session. Clear-cut expectations on the parts of all the participants, right? I defined what you define, or what is jointly agreed to as success criteria for the meeting, and then whatever deliverables have to be done as a result of that working session and the timeline for them. I think if we clearly define, put into context some things other than topics to discuss, which by the way are tremendous value, if we add those kinds of things, we give some context and framework to moving forward, even though it isn't likely all 11 of us are going to agree on everything. But at least it defines a context for that debate and difference of opinion to be heard and accepted. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Like because you laid it out really nicely, but then it's just how do we,
I mean, I think we can still work a little bit back and forth on an agenda. My concern is I'd really like to get something on the books for the month of October because we're running out of time before budget season needs to kick off. And I think to make this the most success, have the potential for the most success, it needs to happen pre-budget season kicking off.
Has this been presented to the select board?
They haven't seen the hard copy of this.
Right.
I've run through basic pieces in the conversation.
So what if I suggested this? What if all the finance committee members who have a copy of this share with me what your thoughts are? And Steve, if you could somehow commit your good points to writing, let me cobble together all of those, share with you, and then maybe have new and improved or a different or more expansive list that you even have here, or even a condensed one that's going to take everybody's, because many of them just saw it for the first time at 4 o'clock today. They knew it was coming and now they've seen it. Let them have some time to digest it. Doesn't have to be a long narrative, just some quick thoughts, bullet points. Let me share them with you to get a document, and maybe you share it with the select board, and they have some points, and then we've already had an agreement on a working session as to what the working session document's gonna say. That would be my suggestion.
That would-
Otherwise, we could be here till 10 o'clock tonight and not really get anything concretely resolved. So that was my suggestion, to move in that direction.
I think that's fine. I think my only request would be if we can work on scheduling, finding some dates and times. I know it's very hard to schedule your much larger group.
So
See if
I'm
we
a
can come
big
up-
advocate of work fills the time that's allowed. So if we say, get your comments back in a month, then I'll get them in 28 or 29 days. So let me just suggest by next Monday that I have everyone's thoughts.
So what if even before we get everyone's thoughts, what if we figure out a couple different days and times that could be available to work for your committee, and then I can work with the select board as well on those days and times to narrow it down, so that while we're working on making this more concrete, we have a date to be certain to have a meeting. I originally was hoping for a Friday or Saturday, but people's schedules weren't available. So to Mark's suggestion, probably on a weeknight, starting earlier if possible.
So I have this right, the 9th of October is next Wednesday. What if we commit to October 23rd? It's still in October.
Okay.
It's a Wednesday. Doesn't interfere with the select board meeting if they're having one that week on a Monday.
And we're talking that to be a 3-hour meeting, what, like 6 to 9 or something?
Yes.
Is that what we're suggesting?
Now, 6 is challenging for some people to get here.
No, as long as I have some notice, I can make it work.
So I would say 6 with a hard close at 9.
Yeah, we should, we have this as possible remote as well? Have
Sure.
to be in person.
No, we could, I think ideally it would be better if it could be in person, just so that everyone sees each other and it's kind of a round table opportunity. But I think if we had to do remote, we
Yeah.
could do it. But, my preference, this is the very first time we're going to try this. And I think having it in person would ensure its highest probability of success.
Yeah, I think to Ben's point, if we have a supermajority that's present from both the board and the finance committee, but one person who wants to participate that just can't make the meeting, I'd like to have that option, but I wouldn't want that to be the primary venue.
Yeah, and it just, if this is an important meeting to have, and, you know, at the end of the day, having that flexibility reduces the chance of people not being able to make it. So if we believe it's important enough, I think it's something that, it's an option we should add, and I know it has to be posted and all that other great stuff, so.
So can everybody send me an email to let me know whether or not the 23rd is, works for everyone?
Sure.
As starting point?
21st to 23rd.
It's good.
Oh, on Monday, the 21st, or Wednesday, the 23rd, I'm sorry.
23rd.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I think, and you said, again, just to clarify, you said we're not gonna record this, but it is gonna be an open meeting. So I think it's probably even more important to have it online, so people that wanna listen, we can get a larger audience.
So when I say it's a open meeting, what I
has to be
really mean is that people are invited to attend, but the intent is not to actually have a large audience. Sorry, Scott. What I meant, so right, a lot of towns will do working sessions for the select board. It's something they do on a regular basis. It's when they sit around a table and come up with ideas. It's not a recorded meeting, it's open to the public. If someone wants to come, they can come and sit and watch. That's why I strongly recommend that it only be in person, so if someone really wants to attend, they can come and watch. But it's not open for public comment, it's, you know, we're not recognizing someone with their idea in the back of the room. This is literally a conversation opportunity for FinCom and SB to work through these different matters and see if we can make some progress and also come up with a direction of where we're going for FY '26.
I understand that, but I think the more people that can understand how we're making the sausage, right? We got a lot of concerned citizens last time that didn't understand stuff. Again, if this is, closed meetings are different, but if this is an open meeting, I would, and I understand no one can be, but the more people that could listen in will allow more informed decisions when we get to that point.
I don't disagree down the road. I don't know, for this particular one, I don't see the harm in having it not, I mean, obviously it's not a closed meeting, but sometimes having some of that time less interrupted to get the ideas off the ground, and then in the future meetings, you know, just making them even more public. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, as Heather proposed.
And again, I'm not disagreeing with Ben,
Yeah,
but you could have these in the middle of the town common, and people would still say they weren't informed. I mean, after last year, the amount of sessions we had to educate people on the budget, on FinCom meetings, I mean, and for people to say that they were not informed, it was because they didn't want to be informed. It wasn't because the information wasn't out there. There were so many public sessions last year. There was, you know, we had them just as much as we're having the ones on for the zoning bylaws. If people want to show up and participate, they can.
but ultimately it's either open or it's not, right? So you're,
Well, I mean, I just think
Yeah.
we're gonna see people,
Yeah.
you know, you could have it, you could broadcast it, you could VHS tape it
Yeah.
and send it to someone's house, and they're still gonna say, well, no one told me about it. I think it's just, you know, either people make the effort to participate or they don't.
yeah.
I think that having it, I mean, if you could set it up with a Zoom where people just are silent and, you know, can't participate, then that's fine. But
For
what
that
you wanna
meeting,
do is-
right, I think to Ben's point, it's not, you don't want to do that all along. I think for this
No.
type of a meeting,
Correct.
it's good, right?
If
then
we're not gonna
actually-
recognize anyone and
Yeah.
we're not gonna take comments or public session,
Yeah.
then it's gotta be that way where people can't, you know,
Right.
raise their hand or say something.
But you can do that in Zoom.
Yeah.
You can do it so that the audience is not allowed to comment,
Okay.
period, cannot speak.
Is that what you're saying, Heather? Like, that's,
You can put on and you can control that all
I don't even
the
know,
way.
I don't even know if you can do that. Is that how that works with a working
So
session?
the,
I don't want to spend 2
right,
hours
so-
on this.
So one of the benefits of having it as a not videoed meeting, right, is people tend to feel more comfortable. So sometimes it's nice to just, and yes, it's all public, And, you know, we always report back and we take minutes on anything else. But the ability to talk and not worry about it being on TV, not worry about, oh my God, did I say that wrong? How did that come out correctly? Just be able to have an honest, engaged discussion on the matters is, I think, super important. And I think you lose it when you start adding the Zoom feature and allowing people to, you know, jump in and pay attention, because now you're on TV again, right? Like, how I present something is different when I'm presenting and I know I'm being videotaped than how I'm presenting in a meeting that's not being videotaped. It's just different. It's human nature. We all do it.
But it's still a public meeting, so there's no
Ab-
difference.
Absolutely, but the difference is if someone wants to attend, they need to come to the meeting and they can sit in the back row and they can watch the meeting. A lot of towns that do these on a regular basis for working sessions, they don't have public come because public respects the fact that they need that opportunity to engage in those conversations. And if they do, they have one or two people come and they sit and watch. It's not that something's trying to be hidden. It's the concept that people need the opportunity to have the honest conversations and engaging back and forth without worrying about someone watching them or interacting with the TV or how it shows up and everything else. I also wouldn't do, it would not lend itself well to Zoom, right? See the structure of the room right here? I wouldn't have any of this. I would have it as a round table in the center of the room, so you'd be looking at everyone's back, right? Like, literally, it's a completely different setup on how I'd recommend. That being said, I mean, it's my recommendation that this is super important for the community, for us to be able to have this type of meeting. But ultimately, it's up to FinCom and SB to make sure they're both okay with it, everyone's okay with it, and everyone agrees to it.
I'm of the opinion that we should hold it here, that it should be open to the public, but it should be an in-person meeting. That's my position right now, which I think is in agreement with yours, Heather. So, subject to change, but at least to put it out there, that's what I think we ought to work with, and we decide later on that we want to change that, then I think we change to that rather from that. So, that's my position. Anything further on that? So we kind of have a date, October 23rd, 6 to 9, and currently there seems to be, although I haven't put it to vote, seems to be a little leaning toward, let's do our best to be present for the meeting as opposed to Zoom. And to Ben's good point, it is a public meeting, I understand that, but I think it's going to be more conducive to results if we have it the way it's been described. My 2 cents. So. Anything further? Any new business? Any old business?
Under old business, I want to point out that the town administrator and the departments of the town have deftly and adroitly spent 32% of the reserve fund in the first 90 days of the fiscal year.
What percentage, Steve? I think you're a little high on that.
32%.
Okay, yeah, I thought you said 72, my mistake. Yes, I agree. So the point is what, the library is not allowed to come back to the reserve fund for anything in the future? We said we wanted to budget 50,000 because we knew things were going to be out there that were going to come because it was a tight budget, but the ones we just voted on, we never saw coming. So I'm glad we budgeted the amount that we did. Good point, Steve. Any other new business, old business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark? Any opposition? None. Any abstentions? None. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.